The sport of off-road racing is full of incredible stories, wild characters, legends, and even villains. We cover it all on offroadracer.com, but there's only so much we can put down in an article. Sometimes we have to dig a little deeper, and that means sitting down with some of our industry's most influential characters and hitting record. Welcome to the Off-Road Racer podcast, a Mad Media production, made exclusively for offroadracer.com. Each month, we'll go beyond the dirt into the homes, shops, and lives of the most interesting and game-changing icons of our sport. You'll hear about their history, success, failure, and everything in between as we pull back the curtain and reveal the stories of their lives. I'm your host, Matt Martelli, and this is the Off-Road Racer podcast. All right, I'm Matt Martelli here with Off-Road Racer. I'm sitting next to legend Lynn Chenowth. We're here at the Chenowth Legacy Lodge. And, to describe you, you're a racer, a builder, an engineer, Off-Road Hall of Famer. Is there anything you don't do at this point?
Well, I don't know. What'd you have in mind?
Oh, it's awesome. It's so great. It's really honestly an honor to be here with you. And this Legacy Lodge, in case you haven't been to it, is amazing. It's really pretty much the chronological history of the vehicles you've built, right?
Yeah, it is. I pretty much got one of every model that I made throughout the years. And but there's one over here that was donated to me that was 1 to 569, I think, that Drino Miller built.
Oh, wow.
And I think he won the first or second race.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud to have that here. I mean, that's a real relic of the place. All the rest of the cars are cars.
Oh, yeah. And Drino's, obviously a famous racer, won multiple races in bikes and in cars, like a lot of the guys did back in the day.
Yeah, he was way ahead of his time back then. I mean, he worked on Indy cars and stuff back then when we didn't.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I mean, so how did you get started on this journey of racing and building cars?
Well, I was born in Texas, raised in Albuquerque, moved out of my senior year to San Diego, El Cajon, and I met Johnny Johnson in auto shop, and he had a dune buggy. I had no idea what a dune buggy was, But I was soon addicted, I mean, he took me to the sand dunes, and he had a flathead Ford and a rail buggy, twin tires on the back and no suspension in the back, just for drag racing and hill climbing, and that just got me addicted. My dad loved racing, and I had a cousin that had an Indy car. My dad had a cousin that had an Indy car, so he always wanted to be a racer, and how kids are, they want to grow up, please their dad. So, that's what got me interested in racing, because.
Yeah, that's crazy. What school was that auto shop at?
It was Monte Vista.
I went to Helix.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were rivals, right?
Well, the first year Monte Vista opened, me and Johnny were the first graduating class. And I'm sorry to say, Johnny right now is having a battle with liver cancer that's going on as we speak.
Yeah, it's terrible. But the thing about that too, though, like I was a byproduct of the ROP programs, but with graphic design, and those unfortunately aren't there anymore. They don't teach kids that in high school, so hopefully we can correct that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy,
So you meet Johnny Johnson, and
you don't have PE in high school,
Yeah,
100%.
No,
no
I don't
wood shop, no auto shop. What
Right.
the hell did they do?
Yeah,
Not everybody wants to be a bookworm, right?
Correct. I didn't.
Or has the ability to.
Yeah, or the
I
finances.
mean, I got learning disability. I can't spell. I read poorly. I read, but I can't spell worth a shit. And I got attention deficit disorder, and it's got to be really interesting for me to pay attention to it.
Yeah, same. I remember when they're like, they told my parents that I was dyslexic and that I should,
Yeah, me too.
be in the dumb kids class. And my parents were like, no way, right? No way are we doing that. So it was
Yeah.
one of those things where, you just, work through it. So
Yeah, just because you can't spell don't mean you're stupid.
no,
I could add
no,
like a sumbitch, so I could do numbers in my head quicker than my secretaries could do them on their calculator.
yeah. I remember my high school guidance counselor telling me that, very strongly, he said you should go into construction and be a construction worker. And I made more money than that son of a bitch when by the time I was 20, So, not everybody knows, But so then,
Well, well-intended advice, but
I guess. I mean, I guess I had never, it was
but he
one of
just
those things.
Underestimated you.
Yeah, clearly. But so then after you do auto shopping, you start getting involved with, what were you doing? Were you racing or were you working on cars or kind of a little bit of everything like it was back in the day?
Well, I had a dune buggy, a tunnel buggy. You know what the tunnel buggy is? Some
Yeah, oh,
people
yeah.
out there won't know what they are.
Oh, yeah.
A tunnel buggy. And I was out at Ocotillo Wells, and we'd been drinking a little bit and, road racing around, playing before off-road racing started, It's even before they had the Borrego Rough 100, which was about the first race ever,
Right.
And I was going around the corner, and my leg bounced off, the little platform you have out there in front of the tunnel, but it bounced off, hit the ground, went back, and hit the tire, ran over me, pulled me out of the car. And luckily, I got the brake with my right foot, so it was just my knee. The tire was wrapped around me, and I was so far back in the car, so a little roll bar, that the knobs on the tires would hit your elbows if you weren't careful. We were trying to get all the rear traction
Yeah,
we could get.
the tire was right up in the wheel well.
So we could run out in there, dudes, find a little bump, and hit it and pop a wheelie and drive it around like that with a cutting brake, Johnny he had his first buggy. We took to Glamis. Nobody had ever seen a Volkswagen buggy there before. His son went in Glamis, came down, built it. We went down there, drive it around on the back wheels was on a wheelie, and if it fell over, the roll bar would hit in the sand and stop it. I'd just get out, push it back over, and we'd go again. Just driving around.
That's awesome.
There wasn't but that started the buggy, the Volkswagen phase. Before that, it was all water pumpers. There was Oldsmobile Hill down there was famous because a rich farmer had an Oldsmobile. That's the only thing that would climb that hill. And I get sidetracked here. What were we talking about?
That's it. The beginning. That's the beginning. You guys were messing around, and you started. At what point did you start modifying your own vehicles?
Well, when I ran over myself, and I can show you my knee here. I got a scar to prove it too. This ain't bullshit. See that scar right there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was plowing through the dirt, and next morning I was picking out with a toothpick. I was picking the rocks out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Johnson's wife, Linda, was there. She got all pank. Oh no, you got to go to the hospital. And so I went in there, got it sewed up, and all the rocks sticking out of it. But
nice.
But I never went back to work after that. I wound up on disability for a few weeks, so I started building headers in my garage. Exhaust systems for drag cars, race cars, whatever. By the time I was over my disability, I had a month's worth of work lined up, and I ain't never been back to work since.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a lucky dog.
Well, you're also working your ass off, I imagine.
Yeah, but when you're having fun, it ain't work. If you're lucky enough to do your hobby for a living, it's just.
Sure. No, I agree. Right? I agree. I'm down here with you, and this is my job, right? So, no, that's really cool. So, start with engines and headers, and then where did it go?
Well, then I made a frame. I realized that my leg fell out because there's nothing on the side of those buggies to keep your legs from falling out.
Right.
So I had been involved in sprint car racing and stock car racing and stuff before, just growing up, in high school. And where was I? I lost track. Where was I going? Come
You were
on,
going
mind. Come
after-
back. Come back.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
have these senior moments, but they last for days sometimes.
I have those senior moments. I'm not a senior yet, so all is forgiven. But no, you're talking about after the headers, you started building frames.
Yeah, I made a kit frame that we sold for $100, all bent, tubes notched, color coded. You could put it on your cement floor in your garage and gave you instructions on how to build them.
Nice. And you
then-
mail order those?
Yeah.
How'd you sell them?
Yeah, I sold a mail order, and I sold them. Back we had dealers back east, like Phil's Auto Top. He would buy carloads at a time. I was making 100 cars a week.
Wow.
Out
of your garage, basically.
No. I had a shop in El Cajon right there where Stuart.
Oh yeah,
Ivan's boy has.
Yep.
Yeah, he has half of the shop that I had then.
Oh wow.
So I had about I forget what it was, 12,000 foot shop or something like that.
Right.
So we were kicking out 100 cars a week.
It's crazy to think about. What year was that? Approximately.
Don't ask me.
Well, I go there every week because there's like 15 different off-road brands that are right there in that same business park. Jimco.
Well, Jackman was there. I mean, that's where off-road started, is in El Cajon.
Yes.
That's off-road capital of the world,
Yep.
and whatever they say. And I had a machine there. I had a 8 torch flame cutter.
Yeah.
Cut out 8 parts at a time.
Right.
I ran it 24 hours a day just making wheel centers for Jackman.
Wow.
He had a 100,000 foot building that's a couple of blocks away from me.
Right.
Just kicking those babies out like right and left. That made that white spoke wheel
Yep, the Jackman
the
wheels.
fad. Yeah.
Long before now, all these wheel companies think they're doing something slick. It's all been done before.
Well, the guy that started it before Jackman was Mike Tacoma. He made the first spoked wheels, cut them on his flame cutter, but he didn't weld them on the front. He welded them on the back, really, because he wanted them to be prettier.
Yeah,
Mike was a real perfectionist.
Yeah.
And they just had to be works of art. And in the end, that killed him because Harry said, "Screw that! I'm going to weld them around the front, cut half the labor out of it, and put Mike out of business."
Right. It's crazy how that works. So you're making the frame kits. Everybody's buying the frame kits. And at what point do you start making your own cars?
Well, we were welded. You could either buy them as a kit or welded.
And that was under the Chenowth brand?
Yeah. I made some 25,000 of them.
Wow. That's crazy. Now it's funny you think about kids these days and the idea that you'd buy you'd mail order a frame for a race car or a fun car and put it together in your garage. It's completely foreign, right?
Yeah. But it's either go to the junkyard and find an old VW and use the pan off of it and build something up from that. But those were all disappearing fast.
Yeah.
So
it's funny though. Class 11 has made a big resurgence, and it's not the cheapest class anymore to race. Those parts are hard to find, but it's cool.
No. Well, it's just the old guys, diehards, just the Class 11 fans. It's got a following that won't stop.
No, I don't think it'll ever die. I mean, I personally love racing those cars. I love the nostalgia of them, and you really have to be a driver. You got to understand how to carry your momentum through things. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck, And I learned the hard way.
Driver, and you got to know how to fix your car.
Yes.
And you got to know exactly what it will take. That's what made Johnny so good. Man, he could feel if he was hurting a car. He had 112 wins. He's won 1,000 what, 16 or 17 times in 8 different classes, you know? I mean, some guys just have the feel for when they're hurting a car.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a question I always ask to people who either prep or build their own cars is, do they think that's an advantage? And of course, the answer is always yes, right? I was hanging out with Luke McMillan, and he doesn't build his own cars or prep them, but he oversees everything. And part of the reason why he's been so successful recently is that he catalogs every single part. So when they have a parts failure, he can go back 6 years and pull it out of the catalog and go, oh, this happened because of this, right? Like it's crazy, attention to detail and commitment. But that's why he's doing so well.
Well, takes after his grandfather.
Takes after his grandfather and his father, right? So
Yeah, Corky was quite a guy. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for Corky, Chenowth racing products hadn't existed.
sure.
I took a partner in. I sold him a percentage of the company, and I believe it was 10% of the company. I think for $20,000.
Right.
And the guy gets killed in a accident in Mexico riding his motorcycle. And because we had a buy-sell agreement, if something happened to the other one, you buy the...
Sure.
But because he was on a race bike pre-running, it was like a double indemnity, It cost twice as much. So they don't have to have the insurance policy enforced in 30 days. They got 60 days. Well, he got killed in 16 days. I was out 80 grand.
Oh, God.
But Corky loaned me the money on my house. He was looking to get into the real estate business at the time, selling houses. So I had a really nice house. It was a $250,000 house. That was a lot of money. Most houses were $50,000 or so.
Yeah, back then.
So he took that house, for me and loaned me the money to pay
That's cool.
Pay that off. So.
Well, I know you had a long relationship with him. I mean, Mark in particular won, a lot of races in your vehicle.
They made us famous in Mexico.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody beat the McMillans. I mean, very rarely. I mean, the McMillans in Mexico and Butch Dean in the States. Those guys won more races for me and contributed to the name more than anybody.
Yeah. In fact, we were just in Ensenada and we were interviewing Mark and Mike Smith about the era of the Herbst Truggy and how that changed everything. So it was really cool. But yeah, I mean, what a cool, legacy and relationship with that family as well.
Yeah. Yeah. He was, Mark was just here a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He leaves me off some books. He's got those Macmillan books.
Oh, they're pretty thick.
Yeah. They're about that thick, you know. There's a ton of information in it.
Yeah.
So I sell them here.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, they did a really good job of, I remember asking for something, a photo from a certain year, and he goes, oh, it's over there in that file cabinet and the third one down.
Oh, yeah.
There's like they kept track of everything.
Yeah, well.
So then, you're building these kits. At what point did you start building race cars?
70s. Then it was in a year or so.
Yeah. And how did that work out? I mean, did you have success right away?
No. Doug Fortin was my first driver, and that was a wedge, and that was the first car we built, believe it or not. Had a 2370 something motor in it and fuel injection.
Right.
And it was oil cooled.
Which was trick for the time.
Oh, it was trick for now.
Yeah.
Inboard disc brakes, IRS, and that when Bobby Farrell was winning everything with a swing axle,
Yeah.
I mean, we chased him, led him a lot of time, but we never we were developing, we were breaking transmissions, breaking axles. But out of that came the Fortin transmission.
Yes.
Was developed through those years, and us working on, getting that worked out, and then Doug's son,
Yeah.
wound up one of the best transmissions you can buy today.
I'm pretty good friends with Doug, and what's interesting about him is his mind, right? Like he has this mind for solving mechanical issues, and not just in transmissions, but in diffs and transfer cases, and just he can look at a car. I remember, showing him, talking to him about one of the first UTVs, and he literally just ran down the list of things that are going to break and have problems with, right? And he's consequently built.
Is that Junior?
Yeah, Junior. He's consequently built a lot of parts for UTVs that make them stronger. So we can race on them faster. So that's really cool. Like again, it's like this tree of like all these different people that were connected to you that either were racers or went on to create companies that are part of this industry and this culture.
Well, his dad was really the one that figured out long wheel travel.
Really?
They built a Mutt. It was a military vehicle. It came stock. It was a 4-wheel drive A-arm car, but it was, I don't know what exactly it was used for, but they put it was kind of some kind of utilitarian vehicle or something, but they put a Corvair in it, mid-engine, put a Corvair in the back, 210 T10 transmission, 4-speed with a shifter on it here, V-drive down to the 4-wheel drive.
Nice.
And it had 12 inches of wheel travel.
Wow.
That thing kicked everybody's ass. The 4-wheel drive Grand Prix, they won it 2 years in a row. $10,000 it paid.
Nice.
They built the car for $800.
That's a good payback for that era, right? That's a good payback.
But Doug was really one to, get in my ear about, hey, it's all about that wheel travel.
Yeah.
That thing hasn't. I mean, 5 inches was,
standard.
Bobby Farrell was winning with, 5.5 inches on the swing axles, about max,
Yeah. And now to think like we're at 36, 38, right?
Yeah, well, they don't. The point comes to a point is how little of wheel travel can I use and still do a good job?
Sure.
So it ain't the pendulum swings,
Sure.
That's 30. I don't believe it.
Yeah. Well, it's not all usable wheel travel, right? It's not doing its job, right?
Well, it's a handicap if you're not using it. If you can make it work, the less wheel travel you can get through those hoops with, the better off you are.
Sure.
That's my belief anyway. But
yeah. So then you start having, some success, and then other drivers start coming to you, right? And you start building out, like, I remember, there was the wedge, right? And then the next one was the 1,000, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and then that one, more people got that car, and more.
Yeah, well, it was prettier. It was low.
Yeah.
They just took the wedge and shortened the cage, made a low cage model. They didn't make it to fit everybody like I did the wedge.
Right.
So I made a low cage model, moved it, took the gas tank out of the front, added it to the back, moved the driver forward 10 inches so it had the same weight distribution, had the same rail spacing, just the cage was different.
Right.
I sold 100 of those. Only sold 11 wedges.
Right. And what, during this
All
time?
my buddies kidded me about them looking like a phone booth.
It's definitely it's a funky looking car because of how tall the cage is, but it worked, right?
Yeah, no, it worked.
And so what was that like? That era of like at that point where you're like, okay, I can make a living at this.
Oh yeah, well I've already figured that out. long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, you arguably, I mean, invented an industry. You know, like there wasn't, there was it was really it was you and Funko as I remember it.
Yeah. Well, Funko was Gil George. He used to be a header builder, by the way, at Hooker Headers,
Okay.
and I was a header builder. And it's funny that we both wound up in the buggy business, but they built a Wampus kitty at Hooker Headers, and then they decided that they didn't want to sell it, so Gil quit Hooker Headers and got the project from them and took it and started Funko with that.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Gil's a cool guy. Sorry to a tragic accident he had.
Yeah. Yeah. No, terrible. But you know, what do you know at that point? You know, you go to the 1,000, and then what were your other significant builds? Because we're sitting here at Legacy Lodge,
The next one after that was this one.
right?
This is a DR1, Desert Racer 1.
Yeah. And what was different about this car?
That's, always is the most famous probably design in off-road racing history. That's what the military vehicle's made out of. That's what all these blue cars are, DR2s.
Yeah.
Desert Racer 2-seat, right?
And what was different, or what was the evolution of this car?
Longer wheelbase. This one's 116 inches.
Yeah.
They were 100. So I had built a car for Johnny, 1,000. We stretched it out, to 112, and we're experimenting. And then we found a place, so we settled on 116.
And you think that's a kind of magic wheelbase?
It is. It is a good, even, between there and 120. Get them too long and they don't get through the corners.
Racing against your dad is something that 90% of the racers in the world will never get.
I've accomplished everything I wanted to do, and now he's just like taking the reins. I want to be remembered for being a huge part of short course, not just racing, keeping it alive, helping it grow. If it comes down to the last weekend and I'm in it, the boys better watch out.
Yeah. And so then as you're doing this, people are seeing, big corporations are seeing this, and like, was Yamaha the first big corporation who came to you and said like, all right, I want you to build some stuff for us?
No, the first one was Nissan.
Okay.
I built, see that truck over there on the wall?
Yes.
Yeah, I built that short course truck for Roger.
Okay.
For Nissan.
Because Roger was already racing your buggies, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then Yamaha. Then I got a contract to build a car. Some prototypes. I built a prototype for the Rhino.
Right.
I built that like 15 years before they came out with it. They held on to it that long. That was in the 80s, early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
I think I built that, and then
they were
come out
looking
with it until 2005 or something, I think.
But were they looking for something with a shorter wheelbase for some reason, or how did that? Because that's very different than the race cars you were building.
Yeah, no, they wanted a vehicle to fit in the back of a pickup truck.
Okay.
So I built a prototype, for that vehicle. Me and a kid that worked for me at the time, Jeff Pology. He's quite an artist, quite a talented kid, and he was a big help instrumental in the design and the looks and stuff.
Right.
And okay, where were we?
Oh, we were talking about Rhino. So Rhino comes out from my side, right? And I had basically almost murdered myself multiple times in a Honda Odyssey because it had zero travel. So the Rhino comes out, and I kind of dismissed it because I was already into racing at that point. But then everybody started modifying it. And they made them, like, for what it was, they made them halfway good, and they started racing them, right? And then that really led to what we have today, which is UTVs, which is our biggest class. Which I want to sit here and and give you credit for that. I know there were other people involved in vehicle design at that point. But like, I sit here and look around at this stuff, and I'm like, hey, no Chenowth, no no Polaris, no Can-Am. None of these vehicles would have evolved, or they wouldn't have gotten to where they're gotten. You did all the homework, especially like when we're talking about specifics like swing axles versus plunged axles, and we're talking about the very detailed distance of where the wheels can go. Otherwise, they just don't work off road. They won't go through the bumps. They won't corner.
Everything has got to be. Well, you're getting the wheel travel out and then having everything sorted out so you don't break CVs, and I mean that was just an evolution of time that the sport went through to get to that point.
What does it make you feel like now? I mean, when you see this whole world of off road, and especially UTVs, like people are walking into dealerships all over the world, and they don't know dick about off road.
Yeah.
And they're financing a UTV. You had a big part in that evolution.
Well, when I built the Mini Mag, and that was the first really UTV 4-wheel drive. I had to build a transmission because nobody had ever built a transmission. A little tranny, I forget what they had in that Honda. What was it? Pilot.
So the Odyssey.
It was this straight axle.
It was
no suspension.
It was basically a go-kart.
Yeah.
And then they put tires and wheels and a cage on it, and they're like, "Go ahead, kids, kill yourself."
Well, I was trying to buy motors then. I was looking for snowmobile motors, to run in the Mini Mag that I designed. It weighed 900 pounds, 100-pound motor in it.
Right.
That was the first really belt drive. I had to design a transmission with a forward and reverse, a neutral in it, and a strong enough differential, and put inboard brakes on it and everything. The car weighed 900 pounds, made 100 horsepower, had 16 inches of travel all the way around. I sold them. They sold for $14,000.
Right. Yeah, I remember them.
Well, that's a whole other story.
But the Mini Mag, that you're right, that was one of those precursors to UTVs that I think is an important part of history. I mean,
well, I took it back to what was the company that was the top snowmobile guy?
Oh, Sea-Doo? No, it would be Polaris, right?
No.
Arctic Cat, maybe.
Arctic Cat.
Yep.
They were the first. And I took it back to them, and I was working on a deal to get motors from them. And I was trying to get them interested in building the car, telling them, this is your snowmobile. There's a whole other market in the desert that I think is bigger than your market, and they wouldn't hear it.
Well, what's funny is they actually came out with the first sport UTV, right? And because I drove it, and I was in Barstow, and we knew that this was happening, and this is right before the Polaris Razor came out. And so one of the guys who worked with me at the time convinced me to go test drive these cars, and I'm like, I don't want to test drive these things. I've driven trophy trucks, Class 1 cars, and I was very much shitting on it. And then I got there and I drove it, and I was blown away because the concept that you could buy this at a dealership, that had never happened before. And so I remember asking the guy, I go, "Hey, do you have a dealer in El Cajon?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Cool, I'll take that dealership. Let's work out the details," right? And I'm really glad the sales guy never followed up, because like 3 months later, the Polaris Razor drops, and it just kicked its ass, right? And subsequently they out-businessed everybody, and it improved in building a vehicle that was what we have today is in terms of UTVs, which are again, you are the root of that, for sure. And now we have vehicles you can go in and buy at a dealership that have 18 inches of wheel travel, do 100 miles an hour stock. I mean, they're totally
amazing,
capable, right?
Yeah, you sure couldn't build anything for anywhere near what you could buy one for.
Oh, not anytime, So, and then the other thing I want to talk about is the drivers that you had. I mean, you literally had, if not the most important, I would probably say the most important drivers, in off road history. You had Ivan, you had Rick Mears, you had
Roger Mears.
Yeah, Roger Mears.
Rob McCracken.
Yeah, Rob Mack, the GOAT.
Yeah, all the guys all the Las Vegas crew that drove for
the Deans,
Bush Dean,
right?
I mean, I don't know how many cars he built guys for, but all the top Vegas guys.
Yep.
Herps and who else is up there?
McMillan's, we talked about them earlier.
Yeah, well, they were mainly Mexico's where they dominated, although I just bought an old car of McMillan's, a single-seater that Mark had. I just found it, and I bought it, and it's the only car to ever run the 1,000, the 500, and the Mint 400 in the same year.
That's right.
So I bought that car. I'm looking to get somebody to restore it for me.
That'll be bitching. We'll have to bring that one out to the Mint and show it off for sure. But then, at some point the military comes knocking, and basically in a nutshell, you create the first fast attack military vehicle. How did that happen?
Well, we had the fastest dune buggy, and we had the record in Mexico. We had the record off-road racing, and we had the manufacturing capabilities. All of our competitors were little shops, they didn't have, 50 people working for them. So we were capable, and we had the technology, and we were running all the races. So that's why they came knocking on our door.
And what was that?
Plus, previously I had built, that's a remote control. No, it ain't. Excuse me. That's a target vehicle. That towed a minesweeper.
Right.
That would look out in front of you. Notice that thing's all aluminum.
Okay.
To not get a magnetic signature. And they towed this trailer that looked out in front of it that supposedly could spot a dime on a football field.
Oh, wow.
And he had a computer in there, and then he was guiding guys on each side of him that had their little handhelds where to go to look at the mine. And then he'd find it, stake it, another guy come along, dig it up, another guy come along, and they just marched down the field with it.
Wow. Minesweeper, off-road vehicle minesweeper.
But my first vehicles, I made remote control target vehicles for the military.
Okay.
When they're trying to train pilots how to shoot, cars on the ground going, something going 50 miles an hour when they're going 600. And so they use them at China Lake, and then they would radio back to him how they missed and overshot, undershot. Because when you're going that fast, I guess you don't see where the bullet, if you hit them or not until you pass them.
Sure.
So
how crazy.
It seemed weird to me. But anyway, we made about, 35 of those remote control target vehicles. They're all ran by a joystick from a mile away.
That's crazy. And then you end up building the first, special forces military fast attack vehicles.
Yeah. Well, what they wanted, it had to go 85 miles an hour. And it had to be basically, that design there with the 50 caliber with the third driver, smaller one on the co-driver. And then he could swing his seat around and then grab one of the smaller guns. I forget what size they were, and shoot anybody chasing them.
Yeah, like an M14 or something.
So this newer one is to fix the problems with that one. Yeah. This one's diesel. This one's diesel, 4-wheel drive. Then the driver's seat can swing all the way around with a 50 caliber.
Yeah.
So that was what came after that. But we only built a couple of these, and this one here is Ryan Thomas's, and the other one they took, but they went off the Humvee route. We just weren't a big enough company to be able to produce what they needed.
Yeah.
All right, Chase. Number 23. It's 2023. This championship's yours. Let's show these guys what's up.
Easy, boys. It's not over yet. Big dog still gotta eat.
Whatever you say, big dog. Seriously? These fools think I'm pride?
They know the deal.
Yeah, you know, and so then that was kind of around the era that you departed, right? You sold your shares to Ryan's father, right?
Trying to remember. Yeah, I sold it to another fellow actually, but it wound up being Mike's.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like. I wanted to build race cars. I kept the race car business. I sold him the play car business and the military business. I kept the race car business.
Okay.
And then I went off on my own and designed the 5-link suspension, the short course suspension,
Okay.
which
It was a game changer.
it changed short course. If you didn't have a 5-link, you couldn't run short course.
Yeah. And then, so did you kept building short course cars for a while?
Yeah, a few years. I don't remember just how long, and then I decided I want to make some money. I got in the tarping business. Making tarping system for dump trucks. It was a law; you had to have those, and they were trying to pass laws in the desert that we couldn't take our buggies to the desert. I said, I want to get on the other side of this deal.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I also remember that era of, like, you know, every car that was winning was a Chenowth. And then the next era was Jimco, you know, and it was really a lot because, you know, they had seen all the evolution that you had created, and everything started changing really with making bigger, heavier vehicles with with more horsepower. So that was, the era that I grew up in was like, you know, now Jimco's dominated in Class 1 and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's just because I'm not racing them.
Well, I mean, truthfully, I mean, again, it's like you have to have that era of, like, you know, it's like, you know, I see it now. I was talking to Neil Mason, who's making all the 4-wheel drive trucks, right? And part of his success is that, you know, all the people that came before him and that solved all these problems, and some of them they didn't solve, right? So now we have new technology that we can make these things live, which we didn't have, you know, 10, 20 years ago. So it's pretty cool to be
So true.
a part of that evolution in real time. You know, and then, you know, at some point you decide to build this lodge, right? And start getting some of your race cars back. What was the rationale for that? What drove you to that decision?
Well, it was so cheap. I just bought it from my neighbor, you know, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it when I bought it. I thought I might make a restaurant out of it and have girls swinging in chandelier, you know. I didn't know what I was going to do with it when I got it.
Yeah.
And then I had these cars here and there and started, I don't know when I really got the idea, I decided to do it.
It's really cool. I mean, the, you know, multiple decades of history in here of off-road racing, there is no place like this. You know, not for off-road. You know, we don't like, we have the Hall of Fame, but it's virtual, right? It's a, you know, annual awards, and, you know, it has a website, but there aren't very many places you can go to and not just see the vehicles, but see all the photos and the, you know, the clothes and the, you know, the helmets and I'm geeking out on some of the old awards, right?
Those trophies over there.
Yeah.
Those are all Roger Mears trophies.
Yeah.
One guy. That shows you history. All those helmets, all those trophies.
Yeah.
All the, Guy's unbelievable.
He's clearly a badass.
Well, I don't think so. It's as badass as they come, as far as I'm concerned.
That wall proves it right there, right?
You know, when I first built the 5-link cars, of course, I got Roger to drive it, and the Gilmans were winning then, the Gilman brothers.
Yes.
And they had Funkos. And we went to Phoenix. We spanked them. You know, and everybody says, oh, well, that's Roger Mears. He can drive anything. The car didn't get any credit.
Yeah.
It pissed me off.
Yeah.
So we go again. Next week, we beat them again. The same sort of thing. Well, in the meantime, I had built a car for Don Guthrie. And was it Don Guthrie? I think so. Anyway, then he was getting a divorce or something and traded the car off to the Arcieros and then Butch and Al, which wound up winning a race with it. Now all of a sudden the car was cool.
Right.
I sold 100 and some of them.
Nice.
But the car couldn't get credit as long as Roger was driving it. That's how good he was.
I just saw Frank. Is that the car that they were just finished restoring? Do you know?
I doubt it. No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw Frank.
Is it a short course car?
I'm not sure. He brought it up with me. We were at Long Beach Grand Prix, and it was actually a really funny moment because I was sitting there talking to him, and I was in one of the pits, and he goes, oh, these guys don't know like he's pointing to all the drivers. He's like, they don't know how cool off road is, and I'm like, yeah, so it was really cool. Great family.
Yeah. Oh, Butch was a good shoe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely to be contended with.
Are there any, to you, out of the vehicles that you've built, is there one that's like your baby, the one that you're the most proud of?
Well, the DR2 is, it's been the most successful,
Sure.
and it's, but that car I built for Phil Blurton over there, that Arrow was one of the most fun projects I ever did.
Yeah.
I
mean, that thing's cool looking. It looks like an off-road Indy car.
Well, that was the idea. That's why we called it the Arrow.
Yeah.
That had a motorcycle motor in it, and was the SXR 1100, I think, one of those oil-cooled motors.
Oh, yeah. And I want to point out, to people who can't see this, there is no spare in there.
No room for a spare.
No. It's like if you get a flat, it's a wrap, right? They talk about confidence, right?
Yeah, well, yep.
That's pretty cool. It's cool too because again, like the generations of racers that have been, affected by you. I mean, his son, I was just talking to you about it a little bit ago, but his son just won the Pro Turbo class, which is a buggy. So it's the evolution.
UTV.
Yeah, it's UTV. So but a lot of the racecraft that Phil Blurton Jr. knows comes from his dad, and comes from some other people surrounding him with a lot of knowledge, like Glenn Harris, right? One of the guys that contributes to that program. So that brings you up to speed and gives you a pretty good advantage.
Yep. Been fun.
Yeah. No, this lodge is amazing. I mean, I had been meaning to come here, and then we came here accidentally because we got a flat, and I pulled out in the road, and the sign for the Legacy Lodge is right there, and I'm like, well, I can either sit here in the sun for 2 hours and wait for my guys to bring the trailer down, or I'm pretty damn sure they have beers. So I drove up here and had a great lunch at your restaurant, and then several beers while my guys came down with the trailer. But no, it's really cool. So again, for people that don't know, the Legacy Lodge is just south of Ensenada in Percebu. You can come stay here. How many rooms do you have?
South of San Felipe.
Yeah, just south of San Felipe.
Yeah.
In Percebu.
I got
right?
11 oceanfront rooms,
Yeah.
and then I have a bunkhouse in the back that sleeps 8.
Perfect.
4 bunk beds, for a pit crew or, big family or whatever. So,
And if you're into off-roading at all, you should come down here and check this out. It's really cool.
yeah, I can't see why not.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
If you want to see where it came from or how it happened, there's some samples of the cars over all the years. They're here.
yeah. Plus, it's beautiful here. It's,
That's
right.
Ivan Stewart's car first. He Iron Man. He drove that in '76. That rained year that he drove overall, got his name for being Iron Man.
Yeah,
That's the car there.
yeah. That's definitely a piece of history. Everybody remembers him from the trucks, right? We started as a buggy guy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, they all started buggy guys. Trucks were slugs in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. Again, like I'm really glad you did this because, like I said, it gives us all a place to go and hang out and have some drinks and talk about current races and races that happened before. And the weather's fantastic, the food's awesome, and the drinks are definitely flowing. So, really cool. But again, it's an honor to be here with you. I appreciate your time and hope to be coming back here quite a bit. Thank you very much, Lynn.
Well, my pleasure. Anytime you want, you're welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you.